So, good morning, class. Before we start our discussion, I am your teacher, Chanella, but you can call me Teacher Chanel. And before we start our lesson, let us pray first. So, let's bow our head and feel the presence of the Lord. Thank you, Lord, that you're our friend. You delight in all we do, especially when you hear our prayers, and we give thanks to you. Amen. So, guys, before we start our lesson, let's have some motivation first. I'm gonna show some pictures of famous epic and folktale stories, and you guys are going to guess what is the title of the epic or folktale that I am going to show. So let's start. So here is the first picture, and let's have Miss Alondre.
The Monkey and the Turtle by Jose Rizal, or also known as Ang Unggoy at Pagong.
That's right. So I'm gonna show the next picture. Let's have Miss Kaimi.
Biyag ni Lamang by E.R. Senyo Manuel.
That is right. So let's have the third picture. And our last picture, let's have Miss Alura.
It is the Ibolon from the Bicol region.
That's right. So that's all for our today's motivation. The mentioned epic and folktale stories are just a few of the famous stories here in the Philippines. So for today's lesson, we are going to watch a video about Suwan, the good guesser. Actually, the story is popular among Pampangans. So let me just play the story.
Hey, this is Shiloh Winston narrating an epic story from Philippines. Manuel Reyes, the narrator, heard this story from his grandfather when they lived in Rizal province in the Philippines. And this story appears in From Filipino Popular Tales by Dean S. Franzler. Here is the epic tale from Philippines in my own words. Once there was a boy named Suen living in Campau near the Batangas in Philippines. He liked going to school as many boys of his age do. He was a sharp-witted and clever boy, but Suen was poked by his friends because he couldn't pronounce the letter X. He would instead say Ekid. His schoolmates casually named him as Suen Ekid, much to the displeasure of the lad. Wherever he went, he could hear them shouting, Ekid, Ekid, Ekid. Suen was disgusted and decided he needs to do something about it. One such afternoon, he approached his mother and demanded, "Mother, buy me a pencil and a notepad. I want to show everyone that I'm the wisest boy in our town." Not quite sure about what he meant, his mother agreed to fulfill her son's simple demands. While her mother forgot the whole conversation, Suen didn't. One night, when his parents were fast asleep, he stole the father's plow and hid near a brook. So plow is a farming tool that has blades fixed in a frame, which is used to draw over the soil, to turn it over and cut furrows to prepare it for planting the seeds. The next morning, his father was seen running across the porch trying to find the plow. Seeing this timely moment, Suen inquired, "What are you searching?" "Did you see my plow?" his father asked. Trying to help his father, he comforted him and added, "Father, I can guess where it is. Come with me." Suen then took his pencil and drew few figures and shapes on the paper which no one could understand. He raised his head and said, "It means the neighbor stole the plow from the porch and hid it near the brook." His father rushed to the spot and was delighted to find his plow. He screamed, "Good Lord, my son is the wisest boy in the whole town." News of Suan's prediction spread like wildfire in the town. While Suan sat on a guava tree one lazy afternoon, he saw Pedro, his uncle, plowing the field with his carabao. Pedro went out to have meal. In the meantime, Suan took the carabao and hid it. Upon his return, Pedro saw his carabao was missing. He went out and called his pet. A passerby interrupted Pedro and said, "You look flustered. What happened?" Pedro narrated his plight, and the man said, "Go to your nephew, Suan. He can tell who took away your carabao." Suan again repeated the act of drawing gibberish and explained the place where it was hidden. Pedro was delighted to know that Suan could predict correctly. People then flocked to Suan for answers to their queries. His mother, meanwhile, came across the king's proclamation. It read, "The princess has lost her precious ring. Whoever can tell the name of the thief will marry my daughter. But if someone tries and fails, he will lose his life." Suan's mother went to the king's court and proclaimed, "Your Majesty, my son can name the person who stole the ring." The king said, "That's good. I will send the carriage to get your son here." Saying this, the king ordered his guards. Suan's mother went home and, holding her son, she said, "My son, I informed the king that you could easily guess who stole the princess' ring." Hearing this, Suan was dumbfounded. "Oh, you stupid mama, what did you do?" said Suan with trembling voice. And before he could run away, the coachman knocked their door to fetch Suan. Reluctantly, he boarded the carriage and mumbled, "You will die today." He was actually telling that to himself. But the coachman thought Suan was talking to him. The coachman then turned towards Suan and pleaded, "I beg of you, please spare my life. Don't tell the king about the ring." Suan's eyes glistened with hope. "What? Where is the ring?" he asked. The coachman handed over the ring, and now Suan had to save himself. Riding his luck, he said, "I will tell you what you have to do. If you want to escape the state punishment, find out king's goose bird and make it swallow the ring." The coachman obeyed as mentioned. The next day, Suan was summoned to king's assembly. "Give me the name of the person who committed the crime," king roared. Suan said, "I need a candle to guess correctly." The king's servant placed a lighted candle on Suan's table. He looked at the candle, moved around the place, made some gestures in the air, and then finally sat down, uttering Latin words. He then opened his eyes and said that the ring was inside his pet goose. The king understood that his pet goose had swallowed the ring and it was not stolen. He then ordered to kill the goose. The ring was inside the dead bird. Then the celebration and merry followed as Suan was married to the princess. Meanwhile, a rich man named Mayabong, living in the other side of the country, heard about Suan and approached the king with a proposal to contest. He said, "I have cascos with a treasure of gold and silver. If your son-in-law can tell me the number of seeds in the 2 melons, my cascos will be yours. If not, you would owe me the same amount of money." The king was confident that Suan can do this, and Suan couldn't anyways refuse the king's request. The same night, Suen was restless, unable to think of ways to save himself. So he decided to drown himself in the sea. As he floated into the sea, he heard two Casco guards talking among themselves near Mayabong's cascos. He carefully heard them and understood that the yellow melon has 6 seeds and the green melon has 5 seeds. Suen then dropped the idea of drowning in the sea and with beaming confidence sat to answer Mayabong's question next morning. "How many seeds are there in total inside the melons?" asked Mayabong. After uttering something in Latin, he said, "5 seeds in green and 6 seeds in the yellow melon." The melons were cut in the court and Suen was declared the winner. Frustrated as he lost the money, Mayabong threw another challenge to Suen to win back his gold. Suen first refused, but after the king insisted, he agreed, knowing well that he cannot escape this time. Then a bottle rolled up to him and Mayabong implored, "Tell us what the bottle contains." Picking up the bottle from the floor, Suen angrily retorted, "You are a waste to me." The bottle actually had cow dung and waste. And thus Suen again guessed it right unknowingly. The king declared Suen as his successor, and they all lived in happiness and bliss for generations. And this is the summary, in my own words, of a 500-page tale, Suen the Great Guesser. But just like any other epic story, this story also has several other versions to it in different places where the incidents in the story slightly varies in different versions. So that's the end of the epic story from Philippines, Suen the Great Guesser. In case if you don't
So for our engagement, I have some question here about the story, and I have shown you. And for the first question, let me just show you. Where do you think the story originated and the cultures depicted in the story? So let me call Miss Trisha.
The story was originated during the pre-colonial time, or the time wherein Filipinos was still pure Malays and was still not abducted by the colonialists. This story was known to be a popular folktale, especially in Pampanga, and it is believed it is originated in the said place as well.
So that's right. Thank you for the answer, Miss Trisha. So let's go for the second question, which is, where does the tale focuses? So let me call Miss Kaimi.
The tale focuses on Suan, a young man who was believed and assumed to be a diviner.
So let's go for the third question, which is, what was your favorite plot in the story? So let me call Miss Alondre.
For me, teacher, the part wherein Susan was again challenged by the king in order to prove his divinity, but again, with the aid of good luck, he was able to guess the correct answer.
So thank you for that answer, Miss Alondre. So let's go for the first one, which is, what was the moral lesson of the story? So let me call Miss Alura.
I think the moral lesson of the story is no matter what life may bring, we should not give up, but rather we should smile on life. We should smile on life, for we are here for a purpose, and doing what we do and being who we are makes us and our life greater and better.
That's right, kasi ika nga nila, di ba? Always remember that people who fight against the wind always have a chance to gain because they have preferred the risk and gain experiences. So, That's all for our engagement. So let's go for our assimilation. So for our assimilation, I want you guys to list down all Suwan's character traits that you notice, and I'll give you 10 minutes for this another activity. So is everyone done? So I think everyone is done. So let me call someone to give me one character traits. So let's have Miss Trisha.
Teacher, deceitful.
So that's right. And let's have Alondre. Miss Alondre, are you still with us? So the second one is brainy. So let's have Miss Kaimi.
It's courageous, ma'am.
That's right. So let's go to our fourth word. But let me call Miss Alura.
Twitter, ma'am.
That's right. So for our last word, let's call Miss Kaimi again.
It's lucky, ma'am.
So that's all for our assimilation. Let's move forward to our assessment. So for our assessment, guys, I'd like everyone to pick Suwan. I'd like everyone to pick Suwan's character trait and explain why that trait is significant now in the 21st century. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes again to answer this assessment, and I'm gonna call one student to explain her answer. So everyone is done na po ba? So I think everyone is done. So let me call one student, which is, let's have Miss Trisha.
Mom, for me, is the character trait that is significant for me now in the 21st century, that Suan has being gumptious, because people who have gumption don't sit around waiting for things to happen, and they don't wait for others to take action. Instead, they boldly step forward and get to work on making things happen themselves.
I agree with that because people who have gumption have the audacity to think big, act big, and be big. So let's go to our reflection. For our reflection, which will be submitted in our Google Classroom, I want all of you to write a reflective journal on the story of Suwan, the Good Guesser. Guys, paalala ko lang ha, sa Google Classroom siya ipapasa. I-upload ko na lang kung saan niyo siya ipapasa. So, that's all guys for today. And thank you, and I see you in our next meeting. Thank you.
See you, ma'am. Thank you.
See you, ma'am. Thank you po.
Thank you po.
Bye.